everybody, I'm violinist UnHae Kwon. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be teaching you Bach's Minuet 3 from Suzuki Book 1. Alright, this is one of my favorite minuets. I think it's more danceable than the first and the second one. This one is also more difficult than it looks. Minuet 1 is pretty straightforward. Minuet 2 of course has those tricks with rapid string crossings and then the triplet and super long until that point, until the gavotte obviously. But this I think has its challenges of its own. One of the first things you'll encounter while playing the song is string crossing within a slur. The slur first appears in Minuet 1, but it's not really a slur because it's separated in the middle. This is a bow that doesn't even honestly need the slur sign. Some people actually just write down up up because it's a hook bow. In Minuet 2 we have our first real slur, but it's with the triplet. That, and then we have a string crossing slur. Here it's little bow and it's open string, so it's honestly not that difficult. It is difficult, more difficult than Minuet 1 or Perpetual Motion for sure, but when it comes to slur and bow technique, I don't think it's that difficult as the separated string crossings featured in Minuet 2. So my first rule before we start, obviously, is to tell the student, please look at the key signature, time signature, reading from left to right. And then my kids, usually by this song, the first thing we usually talk about after those, what I call brute facts that you don't really need to think about, that just pop out at you, like 1 sharp, that's your key signature, 3, 4, that's your time signature. That's not really thinking, it's just basically parroting what's on the page, right? So those are what I call brute facts. The first thing we talk about that requires thinking is then bow distribution. As soon as you see some kind of rhythm, you need to immediately think bow distribution. So here we start with the whole bow, and then the perfect fifth, same finger, and then half bow, A half bow, B half bow, and then whole bow, which is a very different speed than this bow. And then stop, clear stop, because there are dots. In my edition, there are dots because it's a little bit more school. I think the new revised version has like lines. It still means separate. It's not a tie. So we use whole bow. And then here's your string crossing again with the same finger. So for this song, because of the fifth, most students will do what they feel like is going across the string, and they will usually go lower. And it's because of the shape of the fingerboard, the fact that it's like a half dome, it tricks us to thinking that what we think is going across the string is actually lower because of the shape of the fingerboard. So when they have the strips, I tell them, look clearly, look where the third finger went, and it will feel slightly higher than what you think, only because there is a curve to the fingerboard. Something to watch out for. If you don't have a strip, make sure it sounds like a perfect fifth, which means 1 finger on 1 string should equal the same place as the other string. You'll usually hear a lot of that from young children. So something to look out for. We're gonna move on. And here, instead of doing open, I actually ask my students to use their 4th finger. I think it's important to train them as young as possible to love their 4th finger and to strengthen their 4th finger. So, and most kids will be like, ah, where's the 4th finger? Unless you've trained them before this song, obviously, which I like to do through the Chef Chick books in my studio. That's just like a Teacher Grace thing. But I tell them it's only a whole step, so don't freak out. Don't lift up your finger. From this G, it's a whole step. If you can't do that, it's a half step. And then the 2 is already where your finger is naturally located. Just drop it half. Now here is that string crossing over a string. Hopefully by this time in Minuet 2, all of that stuff has been worked out. But just to remind my students who are watching this, when you do the string crossing across 2 strings, meaning you don't go to the A but you go to the D, make sure your elbow is prepared and then your hand comes to meet it. So a lot of kids will do either this and it will sound like that, or we'll do that and accidentally hit the G string. So you have time. 1 and 2, 1. You can slightly stop, get your hand ready, situated, make sure it's on the correct plane, and then, very good. So far the string crossings we've had so far has been from the whole to the half. The fact that this is in the upper half of the bow sometimes challenges kids, but make sure that the kids don't like do that. Do a straight bow as possible to the tip, and then we just, like an elevator, go up as a whole thing right now. When we go up, and then we slightly tilt. Almost like you're gonna hit 2 strings, but you just go over to the 1 string. Obviously those kind of like figure 8, nice, what I call gentle waves on a lake, that obviously is a much higher level, but something to still, I think, instill in kids in case any teachers are watching this. We're gonna move on for now. We're gonna go from the 2nd line of the revised edition, 5th measure for people using the old edition. Whole bow, half, whole bow. And for me, I like this on the beat, 1, 2, 3. Now, so what I just demonstrated right now, I used uneven bow. Did you notice? So I'll do it again. That mistake is probably the one I see the most. That and then here, please remember that the 8th, even though there's 2 notes, there's no reason to be at the frog by the end of the 1st note. You can literally move at the same speed for every single note and you'll be fine because everything is ratio bowing. Use the 4th finger going down. 2, 3. So here I go, hopefully by this time you have already taught your students how to count 16 notes. If you're using the companion book, usually by this time they are. And 2E and 3E and So what I like to do is have them try to hold it as long as possible, all the way to the of the 3rd beat. Maybe push it even more. 1 and 2E and 3E and 1. Which means that they have to do a very fast retake, get their fingers down, and pull the bow safely without sounding crazy, you know? Which is very difficult, especially if they're that young and trying to do this book. But I think it's a great exercise and it makes a little, it makes like a 1-hour lesson go by pretty fast when you make that into a game. So we're gonna do until the and then do a retake to get here by beat 1. 1, ready? 2E and 3E and down bow. Here we go. Yeah. Did you get it? Now straight bow. Make sure that 3rd finger stays on your strip. 1 and elbow, hand. Not just hand, elbow, hand also. Now whole bow and 2 and 3 and you can use 0 if you want. I would prefer 4th finger. I think the 4th finger is super important, specifically when you go from 1 to a 4, because this is like your major bookends. Of course you can do A sharp, B flat, but let's face it, in Suzuki Book 1, we ain't teaching our kids that. 1st finger and the 4th finger are the bookends of 1st position. It's very important for the student to know the space between the B and the A, the 1st and the 4th finger. And every time they get to use it, they get to learn, they get to exercise that muscle, and what makes this even better, it's string crossing at the end of a slur. That's what makes this so great. so that makes it really exciting to be able to control your bow speed, control your dynamics between the A string and the D string, so it doesn't sound like... There are more benefits to doing first finger to fourth finger, although it will cost you a little bit more time than to take the easy way out and do the 0, I feel, personally. Moving on. So from here, you can do the retake. 1 and 2 and 3 and in that case, 1 and 2 and 3, and you need to make sure the finger moves at the same time the bow comes back. A lot of the times you will see kids 1 and 2 and 3 and the bow is there but the finger is not, and they sound like that. Ugh, what? No, let's prepare both at the same time. Multitasking. It's a great skill to have. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and same thing. Whole bow and half and then so forth. You can even do this the second time quieter. You can have more fun with dynamics. You know, you don't have to go the traditional echo route. You can do something completely different. Get creative. All right, let's move on to the second one. 1 and 2 and 3 and here you do need to use your fourth finger, and I guarantee you a lot of kids will miss it. A lot of students will go, well, they will see on the page that the G is low and the B is high. The G is here, the B is here, and they'll be like, oh, it's super far. Yes, you have strips. Use them. But more importantly than having strips that you aim for, learn the space. Because what is the actual space between a G and a B? It's a whole step. That's it. It's a whole step. 1, 2, 3, E, and 1. Yeah, it's only a whole step, so don't even worry about it. Make sure it's moving before you put your bow down in that like split second of a 16 note, and you'll get it every single time. And if you don't, practice getting that fourth finger. I tell my kids, think of where E is and make sure to go a little higher to a B. 1 and 2 and 3 and almost same thing as measure 3 and 4. No, measure 5 and 6. Now here, half step, make sure you know that this is a C sharp. Half, half, oboe, all upper half, oboe, oboe. Here I tell my kids play like, sorry, I said kilts. Here I tell my kids, play those like bells. Bells, bells. Open here because we're going back to the F sharp. And then here, make sure you do that decrescendo. I think making sure the students do dynamic while they're learning encourages them to look at music more three-dimensionally than just and 2 and 3 and then later when you're playing with piano, the teacher go quieter. No, 1 and 2 and learn that bow control of lightening your bow. What makes that more difficult, lightening the bow here, is there's another retake afterwards. What? I know. This is why I love the third minuet so much. I feel like it can compete with the second one. 1 and 2 and 3. Now quiet. So I tell my kids to go to the frog because it's the furthest thing away from the tip. And I just like to be mean. Why is it mean? Because playing piano at the frog is hecka hard. Because that's the heaviest part of the bow. It teaches them a lot of control. So let's try it. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a. Now aim for right here. Now, some teachers might be against this, so I'm sorry, I'm not talking to y'all. But I also think this is a great opportunity in this song to start talking about sounding point. How every single place can create different sounds. Not all kids are on the same level. There are some kids that like really soak up like a sponge, and some kids it's like reading baseball rules to a wall. Like I get it. But I think it keeps building dimensions on what music is, and it encourages kids to look at music more than just flat notes on a page and a sticker on a strip, like a finger on a strip. You know what I mean? What I'm hoping to do in Suzuki Book 1 is to teach principles and concept and to plant ideas so that when the kids move on and get older, that they can take those principles with them. When they start to mature, they will create a student, whether they're going to go into music or not, they're going to create a very creative student who have their own ideas and they can bring their own flavor to their songs. Because, you know, I hate listening to the same thing over and over again personally. Like, you know, Bach A minor is a really big piece in the competition world. Everyone plays it and it literally sounds the same and I'm like, boring. I'm like, I don't want to know what your teacher does. I don't want to know what William Purcell did on the Suzuki Book, you know, Song 7 CD or whoever recorded it on Book 7. I actually leave the book. I leave the Suzuki method around Book 4, Book 5. I'm like, what do you want to say about it? Where do you think the music goes? And all of that actually starts here in Suzuki Book 1. If you want to start it as early as Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, go for it. More power to you. But here I think it's important to start teaching them a little bit about the sounding point so that number one, they have the education, the remembrance that, oh yeah, Teacher Grace said something about that before. And number two, it also provokes their sensitivity to the different timbres that the violin can create. Obviously the brick wall kind of student won't get that right away, but I think it's an injustice to not sow that seed. And the sensitive kids who are very naturally gifted musically will grab onto it right away and it will be like a turbo drink for them musically and artistically. Let's keep going. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. Now, there's many problems with this section. We have the lift, the retake, the landing, the dynamic, the bow placement. So a lot of kids I've seen 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3, they either bounce or they hear or they do. You know what I mean? It is very difficult to land gracefully. If you watch a duck or swan land, those girls are big. I'm not talking like cute little ducks landing in the water like, ah. No, these are big old swans with big old Kim Kardashian. They're like the Kim Kardashians of the duck flying world. They thick girls. And they land super gracefully. How do you do that? 1 and 2 and 3. Power. Slow it down, but keep the movement going. So when you do the retake, 2, don't take that force and come down, and don't take that force and then all of a sudden stop, because you're gonna also energy cannot be destroyed. Energy cannot, if you stop energy really quickly, whether it's soft or loud, and 2 and 3 and there will always be a consequence. So what do we do? It's like parkour, right? Parkour people can jump off like a 2-story building and somehow land without dying. Why? Because they use that energy, they do an extra roll, they disperse the energy by continuously moving. That is what we have to do. A good retake is like good parkour. Parkour. Damn my French. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2, 3. So because it's piano, now we do ratio bowing again. So we want to decrease the dynamic by half. Then you use half the amount of bow you were using before. I want to decrease it by a quarter because I tell my kids it goes forte, mezzo piano, piano. So it's 4 stories difference, right? That is 1/4 difference. So we use quarter amount of the bow. 1 and 2, 3. 4th finger again, please. That's a little bright. Now here, if that's your whole bow, what's your half? 2, 3, now 4. This is a very good exercise because this is 1 to 4. And then wait for it. We're here. Don't go to the frog because, wait for it. How much bow? How much bow? 1. Yes, I do that crawl bow. I do that as like a seed for all the Baroque music that they're going to do later on. If you know the Suzuki books, most of the songs are Baroque. And this crawl bow technique is what I use for every single Bach piece, every single Bach solo, Bach sonata, Bach concerto. Is a very important bow technique. So I teach them really early. 1 and, not from the frog. this much bow. How much bow? Now because we're crescendoing, we use more bow here and then whole bow. And then bells. String crossing. Where does the third finger go? It goes over and a little higher than you think. Half, half. 1 and 2 and 3 and. So you can do the repeat afterwards. I know some people don't. Some teachers don't like to do the repeat. I love to do the repeat because the longer the kids play, the longer their brains are being trained to concentrate, to remember this, remember that. And then if you put performance in there, adrenaline rushing, it's a good exercise on their development to fight instead of flight. There's so many good things that come with performing Minuet 3, performing the violin, performing Minuet 3 with all the repeats. It's just amazing. This is one of my favorite songs. I hope you enjoyed this too. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and the notification button to see more videos from me and my students. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, peace!